Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Now, as many of you know, Sandman is getting buffed in November, and we actually already pretty much have all the buff details thanks to content creators who work for Kabam doing a test stream. And I did want to talk about this buff, and I also think that most of you probably haven't seen or heard the details of his buff. And before we go any further, I want to say that Sandman's buff is something that I'm personally quite eagerly interested in because I absolutely love Science class, and Sandman is exactly the type of champion that I like. In fact, I really like everything about Sandman except his damage, and most importantly, the fact that if you do want relatively decent damage currently, you just have to forego everything and go to special 3. Thus, you can't really go for Petrifies, you can't really go for Deaccelerate or anything else. You just have to go for the level 3 because that's where the physical vulnerability debuffs are. That's where you get most of your debuffs from. And yeah, it seems kind of like ill-designed, I don't know, principle here. But the cool things about Sandman obviously are like access to root, access to bleed, poison, and shock immunity, access to petrify, deaccelerate. He's just a utility powerhouse, and would he have better damage? I would have definitely taken him at the very least to rank 4, if not probably to rank 5, because Sandman is awesome. Right, so what is changing about Sandman? And the changes are, as I can tell, very good and potent. Number 1, all of his heavy proficiency bonuses are doubled but now scaled to 5, which means that in order to acquire max benefit from them, you're going to need to throw half as few heavy attacks. So each and every single one of those heavy attacks will give you double the attack and damage increase, which is great, because 10 heavy attacks in a fight is a lot. Still obviously a heavy reliant champion, but as we know, Sandman has ways to throw his heavy attacks with his unstoppables and resistances and rooting the opponent. He can spam them quite easily. Now, the biggest and most meaningful change here is the fact that his bursts of damage scale with modified attack. And that is super important, because previously, all of them scaled with basic attack only. Which means recall masteries didn't matter, which means boosts didn't really matter. Means basically nothing mattered aside from physical vulnerability debuffs. By changing this, they are opening a very significant extra avenue of playing Sandman, where you do not necessarily have to go for level 3 and physical vulnerabilities. Now, the level 3 will still be a bigger source of damage because, as I mentioned before, physical vulnerabilities will amplify his physical burst of damage. But since now they do scale with modified attack, they're going to be significantly more potent, much quicker in a fight without you needing to go to the 90 or 60 debuffs or whatever before you see some meaningful numbers. Now, obviously, in order to keep him in check, they actually lowered the cap quite drastically by how much is his max ramp up in terms of debuffs. They are changing it from 99 debuffs to 20, which again is fine. It just kind of like keeps approximately the same damage ceiling for him, as in like his max damage is going to be similar, perhaps slightly higher than it is now, but you're just going to be able to access it easier because throwing a level 2 will give you more than 20 debuffs. Throwing a level 1 will give you close to that. So that means you can actually do damage now without going to level 3. You can just throw level 1s or level 2s and spam your heavies and do your burst of damage. And then still, the bonus from the physical vulnerabilities is like an extra incentive in longer fights to go and do so. So how does that look in practice? I actually do have a clip from Daddy Longlegs live stream that I can show you here, guys. And we're going to see how a rank 5 6-star Sandman without a striker taking a 212k Thor Jane Foster. Now, Sandman is still not going to be like the speediest of speedy science champions, but this will make his damage output, usable, realistic. Something that you could use in Battlegrounds without, trying to outspeed CGRs or Silk potentially or something like that. But, again, with his immunities, with all of the utility that he has, I think it would have been unrealistic to expect him to turn into some sort of damage machine. So now you can see that he has dropped 5 heavy attacks. That means he has already the max benefit. He's throwing his level 2. That puts him past 20 debuffs. Which means that his heavy attacks now has, as much juice as they can. And the entire fight was effectively a level 2 and that heavy spam once he goes unstable. Here we can see the damage numbers here as well. Decent amounts of damage burst, basic attacks. And yeah, that was the entire fight. I believe it lasted 45 seconds, which 200k health. Realistically, you probably can expect like a minute-long fights with him in Battlegrounds against the majority of the champions. And I think that's workable. I think that's decent. That's, about the speed that Photon does offensive, big, fat Mystic champions. The cool thing about Sandman that I didn't really talk about too much, but I probably should at this point or when his buff goes live, is that you can do a lot of champions with Sandman. Like, I have done Killmongers with Sandman spamming level 1s, thus reversing the power gain he gains from applying debuffs and effectively making sure that Killmonger doesn't really get many debuffs. And then you can do virtually everybody in Mystic class. You can do multiples of mutants because of his immunities and, lack of energy damage and whatnot. And then he can do a ton of science champions. He can do a ton of skill and tech champions. So overall, Sandman had a wide range of possible matchups that he can take. The biggest problem with Sandman always has been he's just not fast enough. And in this game, 99 times out of 100, if you're not fast enough, people will just not care about that champion because that's the way we are. We tend to use the most efficient, effective tactics possible. And the game currently obviously is significantly impacted by Battlegrounds, by Alliance War, by a lot more things. And by the looks of it, I do not want to ever oversell anything to anyone. I always end up being on the cautious side, cautiously optimistic or cautiously pessimistic or whatever. But I like what I see so far. Every change that has been made to Sandman by Kabam at the moment makes a lot of sense. He ramps up, significantly faster. His damage output or access to his damage doesn't require you to go for level 3s anymore, which again makes him viable in Battlegrounds. Such, with that improvement, I also think we're going to see more Sandman in Alliance War because we already have been seeing some Sandman in Alliance War thanks to him being the attack tactic attacker. And, I will probably be taking Sandman at the very least to rank 4 pretty much before the buff goes live. Because again, I really, really do like what I see in Sandman's kit, starting from his immunities, especially the fact now that he's a science champion that you can easily run with recoil masteries now, because he's immune to poison, he's immune to bleed. In most of the fights, you're probably going to end up dropping just a level 2 and then spamming heavy attacks. So if there are going to be a heavy, recoil-loving people, I think Sandman's going to be one of your favorite science champions now. Double immune, doesn't require you to be spamming special attacks left, right, and center. And recoil masteries will actually now significantly boost the amount of physical burst damage that you do, which again, as we can see, gave him effectively, 50% of his damage output. That, heavy finishing sequence. So improving that drastically with the recoil masteries will again significantly improve his reach as well, and he'll probably be able to level 2 straight up heavy nuke, fatter champions like Mangogs and Sasquatches and Rinters and stuff like that. So here we are. That is how the Sandman buff looks like. Now, he did talk about Shocker's buff as well. I'm going to be honest, I don't think Shocker's buff is as meaningful. If you guys want me to make a video on that and discuss the changes to the Shocker and do that, it's probably going to be a relatively short video. Grab some clips from the fights themselves as well. I will leave a link to the full live stream of Daddy Longlegs, who is a BAM developer, champion, designer, as he was testing out these changes. So you can go and check him out as well. But that is pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you guys are thinking about Sandman's changes. Here they are once again on the screen. And I will catch you guys soon. Bye. proceed with hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about